national security, border security investigative reporter for TV, radio, and the print media. And Kimberly is the senior foreign policy advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She's also a TV correspondent, CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. Streaming live as we speak on Facebook, and her website, The KD Report. The KD Report. Kimberly, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself, Chuck?
I am fair to partly cloudy today and ready to rock and roll. Yes, and
it's a tough topic tonight.
Well, yeah, and now you see how all of a sudden I said I'm fair. Yeah, I just went down. Sorry. All right. Interesting subject today. The surprise electromagnetic attack from China, part of Beijing's new Blitzkrieg strategy, EMP. Very interesting. There's a lot of people that have no idea what EMP is.
Well, it's not a very sexy topic to talk about. Most people don't really understand what it is. But what this is actually creating is cyber war in the satellites and in the skies. And it's a way for countries that want to strike their enemies, let's say China, let's say that Russia, they're being belligerent now. What they can use are these high-powered electronic pulse machines, or actually it's ballistic missiles that they put these EMP into. And what they ended up doing is, they break apart up high in the sky. Nobody knows they flew by. And then all of a sudden, you see a whole bunch of dust coming down, and think Chernobyl here, where a lot of the people didn't die right away, but it was the after effects. And what we're learning in a new report that was released, that in 2020, the commission who was tasked by President Trump to come up with a plan to prevent the Chinese, the Russians, the Irans, and other bad actors to slow them and make sure we have our wall around of all of our satellites, so to speak. So we're seeing that now, 2020 here, last year, we now have satellite imagery that China is building these types of missiles, and they can actually throw them on a nuclear head. They can throw them in an intercontinental missile, so that gives them the distance they need to do this. So we know exactly where they're testing. We know exactly where they are. What do they need with that kind of weaponry?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, in your report, you mentioned, and just kind of let this soak in, listener, such an attack, this is what Kimberly says, such an attack if centered over New York City, for example, okay, would cover the entirety of the northeastern United States, according to a statement to Congress by Peter Pry. He's a EMP expert and the executive director of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security.
And he also, Peter Pry... but Peter Pry also came out and said that, look, 75% of the United States population would not be, that would die eventually from this type of a threat. So when you look to see how China is being belligerent with the Taiwan situation, and you see what Russia's doing over the Ukraine situation, and then you see that, we're finally starting to get some of these reports to come out that President Trump, with great respect, actually forged forward with those and was asking for that to be implemented. But of course, the creatures up on Capitol Hill had no idea. They don't want to do it because it was Trump's idea. So of course, they're prepared to get rid of 90% of the people in the United States. I mean, you have to think about that. This attacks the electrical grid. So now you can't go to the hospital. You can't charge up your computer. You can't, all of these things that we need and use on everyday life would be gone.
It's food, water, heat supplies, everything. It's not like, the Hiroshima bomb that killed all the people. What it does, like Kimberly says, it goes down and it affects anything that has anything to do with electricity.
Yeah.
Even your car batteries. All the cars will stop running. Nothing will work. Telephones. This program might even be knocked off the air, so pay attention.
Oh, God forgive it. Okay. We don't want... You're supposed to be the AM guy that we talk to. That's where we get our radio frequency from there.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back and give you some more on this whole thing with this hypersonic system and how they're delivering them. And it's it's not something in the future. It's already been proven that it can be done.
It's here.
Yeah, and it's been here before too. I think you may have gotten my report I sent to you about 1962.
Well, just a quick second. I know we're on hard break here, but we did a report on this show in 2011 on this very scenario.
All right, be right back. CRN Chuck Wilder with Kimberly Dvorak, Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, and discussing this latest surprise electromagnetic attack from China, part of Beijing's new Blitzkrieg strategy. Like you mentioned there in that break, it's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And and then there's a report, July 9th, 1962.
Yeah.
The United States caused an EPM attack, but it was a test outside of Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think here. I don't have it. I know it was pretty far away, but it took 13 minutes for the missile to reach its altitude.
Yeah.
But anyway, it knocked out thousands and thousands of miles of electricity and anything to do with that. Here, let me ask you real quick, Kimberly.
Sure.
Like I mentioned that, it's not like they're dropping an atomic bomb on you, but it does cut out all electricity. So, and in your car. So you may get killed in a car accident because all of a sudden nothing works. Red lights in your car itself. But what if you're flying in an airplane?
What if you're flying? Maybe you don't land. Maybe try to find I don't know what country we're friends with anymore. But no, when it
cuts down the whole system, I think the plane's going to crash.
Well, that's what we need air traffic controllers for. But when you look at the Chinese, they've kind of evolved this defense weapon, I guess if you can call it. It seems pretty brutal to me, but so there's only two people that have that, and that's China and the United States. The problem before, back in the 60s and 70s, when they wanted to use these EMP, they had no vessel. There's no way to launch these successfully up in the air, have it go its distance, and then drop all of this, bomb residue that eventually goes in and just fries all of the computer system. We've talked about this a few months ago, where in San Diego, when we had the great blackout in San Diego, we were down, for 8 hours. Nobody in the county had electricity whatsoever. The millions of dollars it cost that restaurants had to throw out their stuff. That the electric company had to go out and try to refigure out what's going on. These are something that can take place in the sky above us, and they're getting closer to using these hypersonic missiles, which are very deadly, and you can aim them with accuracy. So you've got this twofold situation right now. You've got Biden just completely obliviating the Ukrainians and not really caring too much about the Russians, except for Putin's a bad, evil person. But China has been pretty belligerent here lately and doing flyovers over Taiwan. And for all of the people out there, the right and the left, who thought that this administration or the past administration under Trump would go to war over Ukraine or Taiwan, it is physically not popular. There's no way we can fight a two-pronged war at this front. And with all of the wokeness in the military, I'm not sure that they're going to be the war-fighting machine that they used to be. So the dilemma and moving forward, what we're seeing with China is, especially through the satellites imagery that went down, they have the capability. They're testing them. So who are they going to test them on us? I mean, it could be they're trying to draw us into a two-front war, and in that case, that ensures we're collapsed and we won't make it through. So I mean, there's all kinds of things to consider here, and this really should be a much bigger story than it is. I mean, this was just a report that came out. This, I haven't seen this anywhere in the mainstream media. So, this is.
Let me tell you, I have, because I've talked about this just with friends and enemies for many years about this EMP thing, and sometimes they think you're crazy. They don't have anything like that. But it's interesting when you're talking about the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, I guess it's George Baker.
Yeah.
And when he asked the NERC officials about the EMP protection, they informed me, we don't do EMP. That's the Department of Defense's responsibility.
Well, it gets better, Chuck. It gets better. Then when you go to DOD, and I've actually been victim of this because that's the way they try to make journalists go away. So you reach out to DOD. This is a military-style weapon. They're like, you know what? You got to reach out to Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Security said, no, that's not our field. You need to go over and talk to Justice on this. And it's a giant circle.
Yeah.
And after Benghazi, we kind of learned that there's a lot of stovepiping going on where these different agencies were not communicating with one another. And that's where we stand today. And President Trump, to his credit, said that is going to happen no more. Unfortunately, he didn't get reelected, and of course, Biden's reversed all of this stuff. He will never go after China because of Hunter's investments in that country. That should be criminal act because the main thing that a president of the United States is to protect the American people from attack.
Hey, let me ask you a question. I was just thinking about this because you're a military person. Kimberly, she loves the military. Okay. Have they gotten rid of the signs that say "looking for a few good men"? You remember that was a Marine slogan, wasn't it?
The only one I could consider that would be like that. I remember back in California when they were there was a huge migrant coming through, and you saw the mother with the 3 kids in tow crossing across the Freeway 5 in Southern California, and beware, they're crossing the freeway. And I sat there and well, isn't that just a fantastic idea now? I mean, but that's how the left wants to take care of it, because for them, this is all about power. This is about retaining power, and this is about having no allegiance to the United States of America, and all of their allegiance lies with these global entities, and they're the ones that are going to tell us what vaccines to take and what color we can shampoo our carpet. If we don't have the money to redo our carpet, you can stain. They're a big brother, and they're actually going to be taking care of the U.S. people, so we should just be quiet. They know best, and we should just move on.
And did you mention, that Trump had signed that executive order,
Yeah, he did.
Because he wanted to.
He did. Not only did he do that, but he also told the people who came, the Congressional Commission staff, said, here's what we recommend, and Trump signed a blank check and said, make it happen. We don't want this to happen in our country. But he had the foresight to see that this is something that all Americans should be concerned about, because if something can fly ahead using a drone or an interballistic missile or something like that, and then drop all kinds of chemical mist, maybe it's fentanyl, because we know that China works with the drug cartels in Mexico, and you're going to have a catastrophe on your hands. And then once this gets into the grid, it's going to knock out all power. So all life-saving medication, done. You can't make it. You can't manufacture it. And, it equates to everyday life. Try going to get a gallon of gas without using electricity. These are things that operate, that our country relies on a daily basis. And for D.C. to not take this as seriously as they should, it's quite scary, and this is not a partisan issue. This is an American issue, because we don't want to be the victims of some such attack. And the way the Biden administration is going about things is he's just poking all of these world leaders in the eye. And that's not a way to make friends. They may say, hey, U.S., we should try it on them first, because they've been ridiculous over the last year. I don't know when, and that's the thing. We don't know when, and we don't know if we have come up with any kind of technology. I do know the commission had put together a group of people who are going to help harden, bodies, our water supply. So do something in the water supply.
Yeah.
Make sure you're getting your groceries on time and they're not dead or injected with some sort of poison. So this is something that affects every single American, and it's a shame that if there is either a Republican or a Democrat that is not pushing this to the top of the ladder and saying, look, we got to deal with this first, then we can get back to some of the inner party squabbling. But this is national security. And that's the one job the president, that's his job. He's supposed to take care of the population here.
And Kimberly, I have to apologize because I don't remember the guest that I had on. I'm thinking it might have been Frank Bernuccio out of New York. And this was maybe 2 years ago, talking about the fact that Russia, we were talking about EMPs, and Russia they're not doing it by an airplane, they're doing it by a submarine that fires the missile from the submarine, and it's for certain areas of the country, but it's still the EMP attack. And if you think, well, I'll just jump in my Jeep or I'll jump in my car and I'll just head out to the desert and I'll make sure I got plenty of water and plenty of food. Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
Because you're not going anywhere. Bicycles will work, but not even, motorized scooters are going to be working with an EMP.
Well, yeah,
and probably one of the most effective.
One of the icings on top of this here, all of those Teslas, not going to be on the highway.
Right, right. And I tell you, I don't know how you are whenever you've written this and talked about it, but you run into people that say, you're crazy, man. This is like UFOs. Oh, wait a minute, we have those now, don't we? Yes. Yeah. But you can go and DuckDuckGo, not Google, but DuckDuckGo, and just put in EMP 1962 or something like that, and you'll get the whole story about the first time they did it, and it knocked out all the stuff in Hawaii. Yeah. So they know it works, and that was wow.
Yeah. Well, and the
145 megaton. Yeah.
And the fact that the Biden administration is trying to drag Russia into a war over Ukraine. I don't know why. I don't think we really need much from Ukraine. I really don't think it's our business what flows to the Nord Stream, pipelines, gas pipelines, into Europe. I mean, Germany would be the person. That country would be decimated by the Putin regime actually cutting off the pipeline. It's not our business to get in the middle of that. It's not our business. It's not even in our sphere of where we live. And we better start sitting down. And I know everybody loves to do these blue ribbon panels and all this. They need to come up with a plan of how to fix this and how to back up the data that we can back up, because you can't keep pushing at China. You can't keep pushing at the Russians. And you know what? Since President Nixon, he was successful in breaking up the China and Russian alliance. He broke them apart. And they've hated each other ever since. Now, what Biden's doing essentially here is bringing them together. So now we're going to be a united front against who? America.
Yeah, actually, a couple of months ago, I saw where China and Russia actually got together and sort of like shook hands and all this good stuff, But Biden, I'm going to tell you, he's coming down on them hard. So you're missing this whole thing because he threatened, the Kremlin that we'll put sanctions on you. Didn't say anything about tanks on you or anything like that. And then what does Biden do with the Olympics? We're not going to let any of our executive people go. Oh yeah, that'll. How many times when you watch the Olympics they say, here's where all the executive people are sitting right here watching the Olympics are participating. They're not participating, and they never mention them. The people that only would make any kind of what's the word I'm looking for, exclamation mark, would be the athletes themselves if they didn't go.
Yeah, well, they spent the 4 years training. They're going to punish the athletes. They spent their time training, so and it doesn't work. Boycotts rarely work, and again, it's pushing buttons of these other countries, and really not taking care of the homeland. I mean, they're worried about China over Taiwan. Well, what about Mexico sending all those citizens across the southern border and coming into this country? And what about the 70 to 75,000 Afghanistan refugees are now residing inside the United States? Some of those people have tendency to lead toward jihad. Why do we continue to inflict ourselves with these types of situations?
For some reason, Kimberly, your phone level just went way, 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 way down. Are you mining again by any chance?
No. I have a cleaning crew here, and apparently they can't listen.
I'm sorry, what was that?
There's a cleaning crew in here. Can we do an early break?
I don't think so. I think they're computerized
Oh, okay.
breaks, and so when we have an EMP over the studio, it messes it up. But it's only 1 minute away. So,
okay. Well, let me just read you Let me just read you this real quick. Key concern. I'm gonna read into this. A key concern is potential role that the hypersonic weapons, such as those tested by the Chinese regime in July, might play either developing or concealing EMP weapons. The hypersonic weapons we tested by the Chinese regime also reported launch and second missile while in the hypersonic flight, for example, and it's possible for that system to be detonated over the U.S. So that's not too fun. That doesn't sound like we should just kind of let this slide, because they're being belligerent about it now.
Yeah, it's just that I think sometimes you've really got to, pick up two swords instead of one if you're trying to make a point. Of course, then you can't wave bye to them because you might cut your head off. But that's another thing. Hey, listen, I want to tell the listeners real quick that you can see this entire report a little bit later on, and all you got to do is go to her website, thekdreport.com, and she's streaming live now at Facebook, I think.
Yep.
And it's Kimberly Dvorak. Remember how you spell the last name? D-V-O-R-A-K. And we're going to be right back again with Kimberly Dvorak, Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, and it is thekdreport.com. Kimberly, you have an attachment to this latest report, and it has to do with the Afghans that the Biden administration brought in.
Yeah.
And boy, I'm telling you, we must be the richest country, not only on Earth, but in the universe. When I look at these figures, 7 billion there. Let's give them 13.3 billion here.
Yeah.
Let's give Kimberly and Chuck $1,000. Okay, that'd be nice. Yeah, just 1,000.
Yeah, those are interesting things that when you consider. I just think Americans will be outraged when we're bringing them all into this country, and they come from rogue states that would like to harm the United States. It's something that I just want to say the International Assessment and Strategy Center did come out saying EMP weapons offered Russia, China, and the ICBM armed rogue states fast, cheap, and effective means to make most Americans feel immediately the horrors of war, making it attractive to enemies who seek to pressure the U.S. leadership to capitulate or negotiate. That's an assessment out there. So,
wow.
It's staggering. You could go down. Here's the chief of the Air Force put out a report. General Brown here said that since Desert Storm, the U.S. military had been asleep at the wheel since Desert Storm and in the 90s on the issue of electronic pulse warfare. So this is one of the highest rated person over at the Air Force screaming the alarm bells, and then nothing is being done about that whatsoever.
Yeah, it's I don't know what it is. It's false security. Is that the word that people have? That you just think, never going to happen.
Yeah.
You even get it in California every once in a while. You think, well, I guess that's the end of earthquakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, and then, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is one thing I want to leave with the listeners and viewers. Another Chinese danger lurking in the sky are the EMP technology. It's a weapon detonated by nuclear weapon with high altitude that devastates electrical grids. Communications would collapse, transportations would halt, electrical power would be non-existent, Not even a global humanitarian effort would be enough to keep hundreds of millions of Americans from death by starvation or exposure or the lack of medicine. And if that doesn't scare people, I don't know what will.
Yeah, and in your report, it would be the estimated thing would be the death within a year of up to 90% of all Americans. 90% within a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, scary stuff.
Yeah. And so then that other thing I brought up, your attachment on this about the money being stretched out. Better think about it there, government. 90% of Americans going away, because, by the way, all that money you are giving away to the Afghanistans, that's taxpayers' money. And if you lose 90% of the taxpayers' money, that would leave 10% of the people have to pay for everything. Okay.
Well, I mean, that might be true, but I'm just saying that money that they have allocated for all these refugees and all the illegals crossing the border, that money could actually be transferred over, and let's have it be used so we could come up with, some sort of defense weaponry that would find and decimate the EMP attacks moving forward in this country. But there's been zero talk about it, and the Biden administration could care less.
They take it too lightly, the EMP. Check it out, listener, and you'll see it's a very serious thing. Kimberly Dvorak, thank you very much. Look forward to our next report. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.